Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Crimes, Killers, Cults.
And beer.
And beer. Just two crazy Florida men drinking beer and talking about true crime because we frickin' feel like it and because you guys apparently like it, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to us.
Right?
And big things are coming for this podcast, which we'll get to as the time draws near. So,
draws near. Oh shit! You see what I'm drinking? I'm actually drinking beer today.
He's drinking Bud Light. Oh my god!
And I'm still not.
I'm drinking PBR.
Yeah, bullshit.
Now I'm drinking Bud Light. Anyway, that's Todd.
And that's Bill.
And that's Nora. Welcome back,
Hey
Nora.
guys. Hi guys, how are you?
Good.
So when we
tired,
I don't have any ado. Do you?
I have no ado other than whatever.
Do you have any ado, Nora?
I don't.
She don't have any ado.
I do remember our reminder was 13.
Dan Marino, greatest quarterback of all time. And we're going to get hate mail for that because no Tom Brady, no Joe Montana, no Ryan Leaf. But anyway, when we left off before, you had just come to the point to where that was you were ready to get out, and to be honest with you, I'm sure that you could tell us a lot more horror stories than what happened, but the one that you did share was like a major doozy, and I don't really think that we need any more examples. I mean, it's just that one got the point across, and that was pretty intense. So
I agree.
So I guess start from there, whatever 13 is, other than the greatest quarterback of all time.
So 13 was kind of the catalyst to me deciding that I was done with this and I was gonna leave. I don't know if you've seen the movie 13. It's about a couple teenage girls who are 13 who are running around, getting into trouble, doing drugs, having sex, all, really acting out in dangerous ways. And the owner of my program decided that was the best movie to possibly show a bunch of teenage girls who'd gotten in trouble for acting out and who'd gotten there because of that.
Oh, wow.
The week following showing us that, we had 14 girls self-harm, myself included. 4 tried to drink bleach. 3 tried to run away. I honestly would not be surprised if the owner chose that movie to keep the staff on their toes and just to see what would happen as like a social experiment kind of thing.
Yeah.
And because of my self-harm, I'm the only one who really got like significantly punished for it. It was just after Easter of 2004. I had been there for about 6 months. And so after that, they decided that they took away my parent visits, they took away my home visits, and they added another 9 months to my program. And wow. That would have put me graduating 3 months before I turned 20. And
you were 16 when you went there?
Yeah, I was 16 when I got to Wilderness. I turned 17 in Wilderness, and then I turned 18 at boardings.
So how did you wind up going from one program to another?
That's kind of part of the industry. It usually starts with educational consultants saying, send your kids to programs, and they really push Wilderness programs. And then those Wilderness programs really push the juvenile transporters.
They're spreading the wealth.
Yes, exactly. And then from Wilderness programs, the Wilderness programs will, and then parents go back to the educational consultants, and the Wilderness programs and educational consultants together push long-term residential treatment. So most kids who go to Wilderness also end up doing long-term residential treatment at a therapeutic boarding school or residential treatment center as well. And so like the average Wilderness stay is anywhere from 2 to 5 months. And then the average boarding school residential stay is about 2 years. So most kids spend an average of 2 to 4 years in the industry. I do know a number of kids who spent their entire adolescence from age 11 to 18 in the industry. So it really just depends on what your parents decide and how much the programs get pushed onto them. But that's still, that's kind of how the progression works. So I was at my boarding school. At this point, it was April. So I had another 14 months left on my program, and they wanted to add another 9. I was scheduled to leave when I was 18 and a half, and they wanted to keep me an extra year almost.
You had turned 18. What was to stop you from just saying, "Fuck y'all, I'm out of here"? You were an adult.
Nowadays, like the more modern mindset, like a lot of the kids in these programs are aware of the fact that when they turn 18, they can check themselves out, they can leave. During my generation, that was absolutely unheard of. We didn't know we could leave at 18. I was 20 years old before I found out that I actually could have left at 18.
Oh, wow.
It was another year and a half after I left my program before I found that out. And it's very isolating, especially when it comes to society. I went from November 2004 to June 2005. When I left my program, I didn't know who the president was.
Oh, damn.
Oh, wow.
Which is like one of those pieces of information that everyone kind of takes for granted. Everybody knows who the president is. That's one of the questions they ask you when you've had a head injury.
It was George W. Bush.
W.
Was that the Romney election?
No, that was 2005 was George W. Bush's second term.
Who'd he run against?
He ran against John Kerry in the second election.
Kerry, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Trounced him.
So yeah, I had no idea who the president was for like 8 months because of how isolated they are. But so they showed us 13. They basically isolated me further. I wasn't allowed to interact with the other girls. They gave me a stump as punishment, which you had to go out onto the school property somewhere away from the main campus and find a tree stump because they had a lot of lumber. So they had lumber companies come that they'd sell plots of lumber to every few months. They'd come and collect and cut down some of the lumber. So there's tons of stumps everywhere. And so one of the punishments was you had to go out, find a stump that was at least 2.5 feet across. And then you were given a children's gardening trowel and you stayed at your stump for 20 hours a day, had your meals out there, no interaction with anybody. You couldn't even see people. Like staff would come and bring you your meals. And you sat out there 20 hours a day, digging out your stump every single day until the stump was fully out of the ground. And you'd have 4 hours of night sleep. Huh?
Roots and all?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you're digging pretty deep.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. And then those 4 hours at night that were for sleeping, you had to be within arm's reach of staff. In some cases, they would physically tie you to staff with like a dog leash or a horse lead, so you couldn't get away or run or try to sneak out or anything. So that was my punishment, and that was the point when I was like, I'm not staying here until I'm almost 20 years old.
But punishment for what, though? Punishment for what? Just something that they dreamed up? It
was because I self-harmed after they showed us an incredibly triggering movie that depicted my own maladaptive behaviors, including self-harm, as like a glorified kind of thing.
Uh-oh.
Damn.
So finally, this happened in April of 2004. June 2005, I was given my first home visit, which is when they decide that you're ready to graduate, or you're ready to leave the program and go home and visit your family. And the first time you go is for a week, and then you'll go every 4 months for 2 weeks until you finish the program. So my first home visit, I went home. My parents had a vacation plan to the Caribbean, which was approved for me to go with them.
Shocking.
And so when we got back from the Caribbean a week later, I think it was that night, I packed a bag. I left in the middle of the night. I took off and I hitchhiked. This was in San Francisco. I hitchhiked all the way up to Arcata, California, which was as far as I could possibly get before the adrenaline wore off. And I was like, okay, I got away. I'm safe.
So you didn't go on the cruise? You left before the cruise?
No. So when we go to the Caribbean, we rent a sailboat because we all sail. I was handling a 28-foot boat pretty much on my own by the time I was 10. So we're a sailing family. We'll rent a boat down there and then sail around to all the really small, lesser-known islands for a week or 2 or 3. This time it was a week. And when we got back, the night we got back, I packed a bag and left. And I for the next year and a half, so from 18 and a half to 20, I spent homeless on the West Coast, hitchhiking. For the south I got was Fresno, and I went all the way up to Seattle, and I just kept moving that whole year and a half constantly. Like I wouldn't stay anywhere for more than a week or 2 because I was absolutely terrified that somebody was going to recognize me. I was convinced that the school
I was just going to ask, were they looking for you?
I was convinced that they were. I doubt they were. I mean, okay. I did have a couple interactions with police, and if I'd been if my parents or the program had reported me missing, they obviously something would have come up from that, and it didn't. But in my mind, I was in panic, crisis, survival mode, just desperately trying to do everything I could not to go back.
Well, yeah, because I mean they've got you brainwashed to the point to where you think that basically they control you, they dominate your world and all that stuff, and there's nothing you can do about it. They've got you beat down to the point to where you're at their mercy, and it's getting away from that, especially as abruptly as you did. There's going to be some lingering effects, and I definitely understand that because it took me probably want to say 10 to 13 years to basically deprogram myself from the bullshit that I had gone through in the cult. And when Todd found out about all of this stuff, he's like, okay, things make sense now about how you were back then as a teenager. But
I mean, yeah. I mean, we can laugh. We laugh about it now, but now that I know, so you never told me about that until we started doing this, really,
Right.
And and when I say that makes sense how you were, it's like that he just had, certain behaviors and mannerisms that
were odd.
I thought were odd, because like I said, I've lived a sheltered life. You know what I mean? I don't know any of these things. And it's bad because I never realized how sheltered a life I led until we started doing this.
But it's not so much, I mean, when you think about it, you say you lived a sheltered life, but if anything, I was sheltered as part of the cult, and so was Nora, but in an entirely different way.
Yes.
It's like we were in prison, basically.
You lived a safe
more
life.
So Nora.
Yeah. That's probably better. Safe life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing at all.
No.
No, I am fortunate. I get it.
Well, sometimes he'll joke and be like, yeah, you were in a cult. You had a serial killer running his MO on you. I haven't had any of that shit. Yeah. Well, that doesn't that make it better? No. He's like, I want something to bitch about.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I spent a year and a half hitchhiking between Fresno and Seattle, primarily between San Francisco and Humboldt County, because those were our safe places. When the weather would come in for the winter, because we get a lot of rain, Humboldt got it really bad. It would get really cold. It didn't snow, but it would get really cold. And living outside, we usually spend winters in San Francisco, even though it was still rainy and pretty cold. It wasn't like Humboldt. So we'd spend winters in San Francisco and the rest of the season up in Humboldt. When I first ran away, I went all the way to Arcata and I ran into my son's father. That's where we met. And he was on his way out to hang out with some friends of his who were like traditional, stereotypical hippies who had a tree sitting operation out in the forest along the coast of Humboldt County. We went miles into the redwood forest and basically just hung out in the woods on these wooden platforms that the kids had built in the trees to keep the loggers from cutting down the trees. But it was on logging company land, but there was no like active operation in that area. Like they owned the land. They were, hadn't gotten to that point yet. So, I mean, really there was no danger. Really, there was no actual purpose in trying to keep them from cutting the trees down because they weren't trying to cut the trees down. And during that time, there was a mother black bear and her baby who hung out at camp, and just like, they were not wild animals. They were used to these people. One night, yeah. The mom let us touch the baby.
Holy shit, that's unheard of.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Holy crap.
And there was one night, the night before we left, we walked down the logging road, which is just like a dirt road, and about maybe a mile, and we'd set up our tent down there in like this like meadow. It was really pretty, really quiet. And that's where we had slept the whole time. But we were getting ready to pack up and move out the next day and go back into town. So we went down to get our gear, our backpacks, our tent and everything. And as we're walking down the trail, all of a sudden, like we hear this rustling in the bushes next to us. And the way the trail worked is on our right side, there was a hillside that went up. And on our left side, there was a hillside that went down.
It was David Carpenter, wasn't it? Got her.
Almost. A little more amusing. But so we hear this rustling in this bush to our left. So we take a step back. We always had weapons on us. We always had knives. Most people do. And oddly enough, the homeless community, at least where I was, they don't carry things like firearms. They always have knives, axes, chains with locks on them, homemade kind of weapons. And so when we hear this rustling, we kind of backed up a little bit and both pulled out our knives. And this fucking mountain lion jumped straight out at us.
Ugh.
Thank God this thing was still technically a baby. The other kids said, oh yeah, he's maybe a year old and didn't know what he was doing in terms of hunting large game like us.
That's good.
Otherwise, we very easily would have been dead. If that was an adult mountain lion who knew how to hunt, we would have been lucky to make it out alive. And so,
couple years ago on this Facebook reel, I saw there was this nature park in my hometown in Florida where it has a boardwalk going through it. And these people were out on it and they were kind of filming. All of a sudden they heard something coming up from behind them. So they turn around and there's this freaking Florida panther just hauling ass. And it just blew right past them and just kept going. And it was on the boardwalk. And they're like, dude, what the hell was that all about? I'm like, shit, that wouldn't have been me. I would have been hauling ass. Because whatever's got that thing spooked might be on its way.
Right?
Right. Whatever that's running from is probably coming and we're in the way.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were to tell that story after she said that.
So, we startled it enough that instead of going down the trail, back down the downhill side where it came from, it ran across the trail behind us and up the embankment up on the right side. And then we still had to walk like 3/4 of a mile down this road to go get our gear because we had to get our gear. And this is like midnight in 30 miles from the closest town. We had to drive about an hour into the forest and then we had to hike another 5 miles into where we were. So yeah, if that mountain lion had got us, we had no chance. There's no chance of rescue, no chance of medical help coming. Keep walking down the trail the whole way down. We could hear this mountain lion on the top of the ridge stalking us all the way down, and pitch black. There is no light pollution at all whatsoever. Nothing. The moon wasn't even out. We didn't have a flashlight.
Oh shit.
So we're trying to walk, like, as our eyes are adjusting to the dark, all the way down this mile-long road to get our stuff. And because we're trying to keep moving, keep the mountain lion from, taking another opportunity, not give it a chance, we kept, we were moving. By the time we got down to where our gear was, I was wearing they're more than high tops, but these Converse that went halfway up my calf. By the time we got down to bottom of the hill, both my shoelaces had come untied and then completely come out of my shoes almost. I think it was in like two of the holes. So my shoes are falling off. We've got this mountain lion stalking us. It's pitch black. And then we've got all the gear we got to hike a mile back up with. So that was an interesting experience. We did make it back to civilization, obviously, and then kept hitchhiking. Well, our next plan of action was to go to Portland, Oregon.
I had a blast there when I was there. I had a blast when I was in Portland.
That's where I was born.
Portland was awful.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the homeless community really has three main kind of branches. The first one is what most people think of when they think of homeless people, sleeping on the sidewalks, have a shopping cart full of stuff, usually stay around the same area. And then there's what everyone calls the traveling kids. And those are the ones that hitchhike all over the place, move around, always looking for new places. They're usually younger, and they're also less likely to be on drugs. The third group is a much smaller group. It's kind of a niche group. It's part of the traveling kids. We call them the train hoppers. And those are the other name for that group is gutter punks. They dress like the old school 90s grunge kind of punk rockers, and they travel using the train systems all over the country.
Yeah, I gotta throw out a challenge flag there because you used the word grunge and punk in the same sentence, and there's no comparison.
Yeah, I know. These people though,
I had to go there. I'm sorry.
Were like a mesh of both. Like there were traits and fashions and things like that they pulled from both sides, and really make their own very, very niche community.
I was talking music. I actually like punk.
Yeah.
I don't like grunge.
I do too. Yeah, same. I like punk, but not grunge. But yeah, that's the best way to describe it, is like a mesh of the two that really creates this very unique kind of mentality and the way that they interact with other people, because they spend a lot more time isolated and alone with each other because they're hopping trains. They're usually hang out on like the outskirts of town, where the trains are, where the train yards are. Whereas the traveling kids will usually hang out in like local parks and stuff.
Now, I've never heard this addressed on, like when people talking about homeless and stuff. I've been homeless too, but I've never been part of a group. I was just kind of on my own.
So there's college students, there's a bunch of really old hippies, and homeless kids, mostly traveling kids, with a couple of the gutter punks that might hang out there, usually just passing through for maybe a day. So that's kind of like what the demographic in that area was. So it's interesting. As you know, Humboldt is right in the middle of the emerald, what they call the Emerald Triangle, which is where traditionally where a good majority of the weed in the country is. So that's that's the draw for the traveling kids, because that's how they make a lot of their money, is by selling weed. Like I said, most of them don't really dabble with anything harder than that other than weed and alcohol. But your choices really are to be a weed dealer or panhandle for your living. There's not really anything else. The other thing, and it's connected to the weed dealer side of it, is around this time of year, actually, late July, early August, the grow ops start hiring trimmers. So they'll pull in a lot of these traveling kids to trim their weed for them. And then, like that year's harvest, they dry it and everything. And then that usually starts going out for consumption and selling and everything around October. So that late summer, early fall is basically the time of year that a lot of these kids actually get real work. And they're able to make enough money to sustain themselves for most of the year. And if you get in with a good grower, they'll bring you back every year, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
never knew
the
any
area
of that.
that I spent my time in. Well, there's this little pond in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, maybe 1,000 yards from the entrance to the park, from the corner of Haight and Stanyon. They have found, there's one time when a guy was drowned in there, like an actual case, like a murder case. They got in a fight and he ended up drowning in there. But at one point they found 2 severed hands in the pond.
Oh.
And still haven't actually, that's unsolved. They never found whose hands they were.
Wow.
I think, and violence is rampant within the homeless community, especially with the traveling kids. I've seen quite a few fights. The worst ones that I saw were in Portland, actually. Of all the places that I went when I was homeless and hitchhiking, Portland is where I felt the most unsafe, because the gutter punks far outnumber the traveling kids, and the two groups don't mingle. They don't really interact.
I did when I was there. I did see some of the groups that you're talking about, because what you're describing kind of sounds familiar. I saw them out, like I was downtown. I had gone to see Judas Priest in concert at the amphitheater there.
Okay.
Amphitheater, Todd. Sorry.
Yeah.
But at the end of the concert, because I was actually sitting out there outside this Denny's, because the Denny's closed. So I'm sitting there. I'm like blowing up.
Denny's closed?
Yeah, this Denny's closed. It's a bunch of chuckleheads working there, and they're like, oh, we're just too busy, so we got to close. Like, fuck you.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
But that's Portland, though. But
do you remember which amphitheater it was?
It was the one right next to the arena where the Trailblazers play. It wasn't really amphitheater's a wrong word for it. I think it's called an amphitheater, but it's a smaller arena. It's not an actual amphitheater, but it's a smaller arena. But I think it's called an amphitheater. Veterans
Memorial Coliseum, maybe.
That's it.
Okay, yeah, you were not far from me, from where we hung out. We used to hang out in Waterfront Park, the strip that goes right along the waterfront there. That's just a little bit further down the river than where you were.
Yeah, but I was snowed in there. I mean, it wasn't snowing in Portland, but all of the interstates, I-5 and I-84, all the interstates to come in and out of there, they were shut down. So I was stuck.
Oh wow!
But everything was open in Portland, so I made the best of it. I had a blast that entire week that I was there. I was stuck there, and I made the most of it.
Nice.
So
when was this?
This was 2018? No, 2017.
Oh, so it was recent. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's it was when I was still driving over the road. But
I mean, I haven't been to Portland in probably 40 years. So the last time
in September of 2005.
The last time I was there, it was a nice place, but I've heard that Portland has really gone downhill.
Yeah, recently.
With all like
all the rioting and
everybody's on fentanyl there, and there's like you just see people just standing there like zombies, just. And
it was like that in 2005 before fentanyl was really put into a lot of the drugs. There's actually a small footbridge that crosses the bike path that goes along Waterfront Park, and where that footbridge was, on one side of it, most of the traveling kids hung out, the gutter punks hung out, and on the other side of the footbridge was where all the meth heads were. Like, it was like a delineation of drugs, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I heard that Portland passed this law that the people have the right to rest now. So that means homeless people can just set up a tent on your lawn and you can do nothing about it.
When I was there, they had, like, all the benches were set up in ways that homeless people couldn't sit on them. They couldn't lay down. They couldn't sleep. They couldn't loiter, basically.
But
they also have their bike cops.
I don't see myself going back to Portland anytime soon until they clean some shit up around there.
I will probably never go back.
I don't blame you.
I don't blame you either.
So we were there for a month, and our last day, my son's dad he was an alcoholic. He was, always drinking. And when he drank too much,
you said he was an alcoholic, always drinking, right as Todd and I both at the same time took a beer.
Yeah, but you guys aren't drinking 10 40s a day.
No.
You don't know that. No, I don't. I'm just,
So yeah, he got drunk and started running his mouth, decided he was going to go over to a group of the gutter punks and try to pick a fight with them. They came over, they beat the shit out of him, and they actually at one point were threatening to throw him into the river. Which, I mean, looking back, yeah, he probably deserved it. He absolutely deserved it.
Absolutely.
Trying to start a fight with the most violent group of homeless kids that exists. Not a good idea.
Well, it's like I always say, just take the warning labels off of everything. The problem will sort itself out.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed 100%.
It may take a while, but the problem will solve itself.
So the next morning, that night, if you keep walking down to the end of Waterfront Park, there's then a row of very like high-end restaurants, the kind of restaurants that don't even open until 8 p.m. It's got patio, like outdoor seating right outside the front. If you walk past all those, there is a big field that's just an open field, and then there's like a gravel lot next to it. And when you're driving in that area, there's that point where all the highways are like way high up. Mm-hmm. And they're all like intercrossing. We slept right below that night.
And I thought was pretty cool about their highway system in that city.
I don't like heights. I didn't like driving through there.
Well, try driving a semi across Sunshine Skyway Bridge.
So we go down to the south end of Portland because we're going to leave. We're going to try to go back down to Humboldt. And to get out of Portland, you can't. I mean, there's not a place where you can just stand on the side of the road and hitchhike, which is another reason why there's so many gutter punks there, because it's a lot easier to get in there by train than it is to get in there by car or on foot. And trains are kind of rampant out there. So we go to the south end of Portland. At one point, we had to walk across I-5, but it was also the point where it kind of there's an intersection with one of the other highways, so we ended up walking across like 18 lanes of highway trying to get to the other side. We ended up in Oregon City. Yeah. We ended up in Oregon City. We ran into a guy who had just gotten out of jail that morning. And he was like, "Hey, why don't you guys come to my house? I've got some food. We can hang out, watch a movie. I'll give you a safe place to sleep." Well, later that night, we were watching House of a Thousand Corpses. And this guy's wife comes into the house and just starts screaming and freaking out and like beating the shit out of him. Ultimately, she called the cops, and the cops were like, we can ask that, you guys all three, including the guy, all three of you guys leave to diffuse the situation. And we were like, yeah, okay, we're fine.
All right. Don't have to tell me twice. See ya.
Yep.
Yeah, we out.
So, and then we ended up getting back down to Humboldt. So that was kind of like the beginning of my homelessness. And then I guess I'll kind of like skip forward because there's not like a whole lot of like importance here. I do want to get to like more positive stuff. I spent 6 years in a relationship with him because of his alcoholism and his narcissism. We ended, it was a pretty severe domestic violence relationship. My son was a product of that. When my son was about a year old, I decided I had had enough, kicked him out. And that was 12 years ago. And he's never tried to contact us. We've never tried. I do try to keep tabs on where he's at. And I do that through.
So he is alive?
Yeah. As far as I know, as of 2 years ago, but I keep tabs on him through arrest records and,
shit.
And, jail rosters. Actually, I don't anymore. My 13-year-old has taken that upon himself now.
Good Lord.
Oh man.
Track of where his dad is. And it's kind of turned into a game. Like every year or so we'll sit down and look him up and see where he's at and see what his charges are for that year.
Okay. Well, on our, one of our previous episodes, the one before Danny Rolling, at episode 69, we did Prison Tender, where we told a few stories about people that swiped right on Prison Tender and hooked up with an inmate in prison. Well, what is your ex's name? His first name,
Christopher.
Just his first name, Christopher. Okay, so instead of Where's Waldo, we're gonna play Where's Christopher.
Yeah, that's basically what we do. He's pretty much stayed along the coast of California, kind of in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's moved a little bit outside of there, not too much. And his charges are drunk in public, disorderly, public intoxication, public indecency, stuff like that. I think that the worst charge she got was possession of paraphernalia and a controlled substance. So,
where in the world is Christopher San Diego?
Yep, drugs, drinking, and public nakedness, basically.
Oh, when she said drunk in public, it made me think of that Ron White's bit that he did way back.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Mr. White, we are arresting you for being drunk in public. And he's like, hold on now. I never had any intention to be drunk in public. I wanted to be drunk in the bar. They threw me into public.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. So yeah, that was my relationship with my son's dad. About 6 months after I left, I kicked him out. I met my daughter's dad, who was like complete 180 from my son's dad. Right now he's going into his 19th year of active duty with the Air Force.
Nice. So he's going full term.
Yep. He's deployed 9 times. What we call Air Force deployments. It's not combat related. They stay on base. He loads planes. So he's in logistics. So he physically pushes the cargo onto the planes, to then be shipped out and delivered wherever it needs to go. So that's kind of his job. And we were together. We met, and then he deployed for 6 months, 3 months after we met. He came home for 4 months. We got married, and then he deployed for another 15 months. The day before he deployed, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. A week later, I found out that my mom had terminal cancer. And then I had severe hyperemesis with my daughter the whole pregnancy. So I was throwing up every 5 to 10 minutes for 10 months straight. And there's one point when it was bad enough that they kept me for a 6-week inpatient stay because I had a whole bunch of complications like ketoacidosis. My esophagus was bleeding from the acid, among other things. I went into shock really bad. They had to put an IV in. They put one in my neck first until I was hydrated enough to put one in my foot before they could transfer it to my arm because it was that bad. And I ended up staying in the hospital for 6 weeks. My grandma died while I was in the hospital. And then at the end, I had my daughter in November. My mom died December 30th. Her dad died January 6th, the day before my birthday. And then my ex-husband didn't get home until March. And the day after he got home, we moved from California to Alabama. So
Alabama.
Yep. Montgomery. I spent 5 years there. Hated every second. Didn't like the area. I didn't like the humidity.
Yes.
Interesting area.
Yeah,
So,
you would hate to be in the South right now.
Yeah. So then I got divorced.
Brutal.
We were together 5 years. I got divorced when my daughter was 2 and my son was 6. And then, let's see, that was November of 2015. And then June of 2016, I met my husband. And we have been together since. We've been together almost 8 years together, or married for 3. And that was kind of a turning point for me. And it would have been 2020. We got married March of 2020, the day before our state went into lockdown. And then the week after we got married, my husband deployed to Afghanistan for a year.
Oh, man.
With my first marriage, we were together 5 years, but of those 5 years, he spent 3.5 of them deployed. So when it came time for us to actually live together, we had no clue what we were doing. Our relationship was built on a long distance situation. We didn't have to live in the same space. And then once we had to, it was more like a roommate situation. Like we just weren't compatible in a relationship that was more traditional like that. We still get along really well. Like I was just talking to him today, and we co-parent very, very well. One of the key things to that, especially in the very beginning, was we put a boundary on talking about anything that did not involve our daughter's needs. So we only talked about her, how she was doing, and what she needed for the first 3 or 4 years. Then we started talking more about our shared interests, like gaming, things like that, gaming, music, that kind of stuff. And now he's fully supportive of my anti-TTI work. He shares my website all the time. Like he talks about this stuff with people, like, so he's supporting me essentially in that sense. And it's been really good for our daughter too.
So you guys are more or less have a functioning marriage now. Like,
well, we're divorced. So like I like to put it this way.
Wait a minute.
I'm divorced from my daughter's dad, and I'm remarried.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking. Okay. I thought that
military.
I thought your husband
Air Force. My husband's Army National Guard.
I thought your husband was I thought you had been with your husband currently. I thought that he was your daughter's father, and you guys have been together.
No,
for
there's one more in between.
Okay,
yeah, there's one more in between.
I was confused there for a second.
We co-parent really well. We get along really well. I like to put it like this: he is an amazing person. He's an amazing friend. He's an exceptional father. He's just a shitty partner. At least for me, we weren't compatible, and he actually hasn't had a relationship since we got divorced.
Oh wow!
And I was not his first that failed in the same way that ours did. Yeah, I've been with my husband for almost 8 years now. We've been married for 3. I co-parent really well with my ex-husband, but really the turning point was when my husband, right after we got married in 2020, deployed to Afghanistan for a year. I had been off of my medication. I have depression, anxiety, insomnia. They're all pretty bad. But after my divorce, I kind of went into this really deep depressive spiral and like stayed stuck for about 4 years. And I didn't have health insurance until I got married again. And when my husband deployed, we got full coverage, TRICARE. And I think it was like 2 days after he left that I was like, screw this shit. I'm going to go back on meds and like get my life together because I can't live like this anymore.
Right.
And so I did that, and then about 4 months after that, I enrolled in college again. I'm at community college now. I'm a psych major, and then I started working again. Kind of, I picked up a position with an MLM which I know people give them a lot of shit, but for me, it was not pure
Which
romance,
one?
but it was a company that's similar. So like adult type products, but that's what I needed because that put me out there. Other than my partners, I didn't make any friends. I didn't have anybody in my life for more than a couple months at a time from before I went to my program all the way until I was 33, about 3 years ago. And so that kind of like I had a basically a financial obligation to meet people and be social and interact and, like relearn how to be part of society. And at the time it was just what I needed. I did it for about a year. And, once everything else kind of fell into place, I picked up other projects. I started working on this activism stuff. I was like, okay, well, I don't need that anymore. So got rid of that.
So let's, before we, because I think we kind of skipped something. I mean,
Yeah.
what was the fallback? What was the fallout after you like with your family and all that stuff as far as because it sounds like you didn't have any contact with the
program.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. No, I didn't. So it started about, let's see, about 6 months after I left. I think like really after all the panic had died down, after I turned 19, I stopped feeling as much of a primal drive to keep moving and run. And so I called my parents and I told them where I was and what was going on and that I was okay. And they told me that unless I wanted to go back to the program, they were not going to allow me to come back home.
Did you ever tell them what happened?
I did later with my mom, yeah.
What was her reaction?
The first time, when I was pregnant with my son, she was diagnosed with breast cancer for this first time. And that was when I started talking to her about that. That was 2013. No, not 2013, 2009. My son was born in 2010. And I had left my program in 2005. So it had been about 5 years. I was 23. I'd kind of started to come to terms with things. I myself started actually, recognizing the abuse from the program for what it was. Because of the brainwashing and stuff. And because most people come out of these programs so brainwashed that they're like, oh yeah, the program was wonderful. It helped me. It saved my life. It worked. For those 5 years, I had this mentality of, maybe I am just really that fucked up and that broken. Like if it helped all these people and not me, then like there must be something wrong with me. And there's no way that it could have been as bad as I think it was.
It's very Black Mirror.
Yeah. And so once my mom was diagnosed with cancer, I was pregnant with my first kid. I had just found my birth family. So like things were starting to kind of fall into place, and I was starting to feel like I had some level of control over my life, making my own decisions and stuff. And that was when because my mom's cancer at that point wasn't terminal. I think it was stage 2. It hadn't metastasized or anything. So it was treatable, but that made me realize, I better talk about this shit with her before I don't have a chance. And I started with telling her about the frostbite and what had happened when I tried to tell her what was going on. She had no clue about any of that until 5 years after it happened. Mm. And she was like, there's no word for it. Like her reaction, her emotions were like all of the options. Like all the different emotions all at once and all very heightened levels. Like she was angry and she was appalled and she was upset and she was embarrassed. She felt guilty, like she took accountability for her role in that. And we talked a lot about the concept that, most of the parents who put their kids in these programs are just as brainwashed as the kids are. They're brainwashed into all of this.
Well, yeah, because they just got sold a bill of goods that it's like, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread and all that stuff, and so these people
convince them essentially to sell their children, have them kidnapped, trafficked across state lines for the purpose of abuse, all in the name of this is good for the kid. And, it's like cult leaders,
Oh, yeah.
they can convince you to basically put your child in a position where their lives are in danger and you think it's helping them.
I know all about that.
Oh, yeah.
So, she and I came to terms with it. My father and I've actually been no contact with him since November.
This past November?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why?
Really, like, I could deal with the narcissistic abuse from him, the berating, the constant criticism, all of that.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I could deal with that when it was me. But once he started trying to impose those things on my children.
Hell no.
I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. Like,
Nope.
No, you are not. Because what he was trying to do is he still sees me as that fucked up 16-year-old who ruined his public image. And he's never going to see me as anything different, which means he doesn't see me as an adult. He doesn't see me as ever being a capable parent because in his mind, I'm a 16-year-old who's trying to parent. And so, it started with berating my parenting while also forcing, certain parenting decisions on me. Like when my son first went to school, my dad, I was working on trying to get him into public school and everything. And my dad calls me one day. He's like, he's going to this school, this private school. I've already paid tuition. I've already enrolled him.
Wow.
Yeah. He also did the same thing with a surgery for my son last year where, so my son's, his Achilles tendons were too short and he'd walk on his toes. And for most of his life, it didn't cause him a problem, but a couple of years ago, he started getting minor pain in his ankles. His mobility started being affected some, and it was affecting his ability to enjoy the activity. And my dad didn't know any of this. This was about maybe 6 months before he kind of forced the surgery. He calls me one day. He goes, you need to go get your son vaccinated. You need to get this paperwork signed and notarized. And he needs to be on a plane tomorrow morning at 5:00. We have, an intake evaluation for surgery. And
you're like, excuse me?
Yeah, basically. But
wow.
I agreed to the surgery for 3 reasons. The first one was because it was the problem was affecting my son's life and putting him in pain. It needed to be done at some point.
And it was free.
The second one is my dad's insurance covered it. The third one is that my dad he's a professor and physician at UCSF in San Francisco, which is one of the leading medical colleges in the country. Well, there's a guy who works there. He is a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, and he is the person who created, designed, and developed the surgery my son needed. And my dad was able to get my son in with him to do that surgery. And that's the main reason that I said, okay, because I knew the surgery needed to be done at some point. If I didn't take advantage of it, I would have had to try to figure out how I was going to cover it financially. And why give up the opportunity to have the surgery done the best that it's possible for it to be done by the person who made it. Every single other person in the country who does that surgery was trained by this guy.
Oh shit!
Wow.
I mean, there's no one who does it better.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of how he had started playing out with my kids. And then he started saying certain things to my son about, how bad my parenting was and like trying to get my son to like disclose stuff about me that was bad.
Oh, no.
And really trying to undermine our relationship. My son, we have a really strong, safe, healthy relationship and, he'd never fall for this shit. I've taught him how to recognize narcissistic behavior and traits since he was about 3. So he knows what he's looking for. He knows what my dad does. He knows his tactics. He's actually called my dad out on it a couple times. And, but it was to the point where like, I wasn't going to let him be put in the middle of that. So I actually, it's funny. He was absolutely, like going off on me. My dad was one day, and he said something like, if you're not going to admit that, you're an unfit parent, then maybe we shouldn't talk.
Oh.
And you're like, okay.
Damn it. Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. What do you do at that point? That's what you got to do.
He tries to contact me once every, I don't know, like 2 to 4 weeks, and has since then. And I've kept that boundary. The one time I actually responded to his attempt to contact, I just sent him a screenshot of where he said, if you're not going to admit this, maybe we shouldn't talk. I said, you said you wanted no contact? We are no contact.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you're awesome.
And I've never felt more confident in myself. I've never felt more self-worth. And it really took care of a lot of my anxiety, a lot of the expectations that I put on myself that I kind of adopted from my dad. A lot of the same mentality that he drilled into me, the programs drilled into me, my son's dad drilled into me. Like, I'm finally like free from all that shit. And so really, I mean, really it started when my husband deployed during COVID and I got back on meds and I started taking control of my life and making decisions based on what I wanted to do, not what other people expected me to do. So I went back to school. I started working. And then through that work, about a month after I signed up with this company, I ended up connecting with this local girl who also wanted to join. And so about a month after me, and we'd never met in public. She was local though. And one night she was like, hey, so me and a couple of my friends, we're going to karaoke tonight. Do you want to come so we can meet in person and stuff? That was just over 2 years ago. It would have been the end of May was 2 years. And I think I've missed 3 Sundays and 4 Saturdays of karaoke since then. Oh, wow. So yeah, I'm hooked. And these friends, one of the friends that I met that night, his name's Charles. He is my absolute best friend. There is nobody who understands me on the level that he does, because we're so similar. And
hell yeah.
Like, we have so much in common, our thought processes, the theories we come up with. So like I have, and it's not just him, like I have a lot of very close friends who each fill a different, very important need in my life. And I do the same for them. But my deepest, relationship is with Charles. And I am so grateful to have all of my friends in my life now. Like, these are the first friends that I've had in my entire adult life.
Well, you got 2 more to add to that list right here.
Yes, you do.
I'm so glad. I love having friends. So I got on meds. I went to school. I got a job. I started making friends. I picked up a hobby that's not just fun and enjoyable, but the amount that it has just helped with all of the stuff that my dad drilled into me that made my self-confidence and self-worth and value just tank.
So the villain,
I'm taking that back.
So the villain in the story is your dad.
Yep. Basically. Yeah.
Man, it sucks.
Yeah.
The hero in my cult story was my dad.
Yeah.
My mom was the villain.
Yeah.
No, that's not that. No, I'm not even going to go there. The villain was the fucking cult leader.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. But my mom was the one that just like bought into it, hook, line, and sinker, and all that stuff. And it's just like, to the day that she died, she would never admit that it was a cult.
Yeah.
She would never. She was just like, no, it was not a cult. It was a strict disciplined church. Like, bullshit. It was a fucking cult.
Yeah.
A
right.
Strict disciplined church. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So after I started karaoke 2 years ago, I started becoming more active on social media because I was realizing that, hey, maybe I do have something to offer society. And at the very least, I have friends who want to see me screw around on social media. So I got on TikTok, and through TikTok, I discovered what they call adoptee talk. It's, adopted kids talking about the trauma that's associated with adoption and what it's like growing up like that. And then I came across an adoptee who was a TTI survivor. On my program, I was the only adopted kid. I knew there were adopted kids all through the TTI. But until I actually saw her and heard her story, like I remember watching that video and,
the hell is that?
Oh. So yeah, I got on TikTok and I found Sabrina Young. She's also the author of a book called Dear Renisha, Turning Trauma into Triumph. Dear Renisha, Turning Trauma into Triumph. And that's her TTI story. It's incredible. She's from the religious side of things. And she was one of those kids. She was adopted. She was sent into the TTI at age 11. She left at 18. And like a lot of us, it took her a long time to overcome that and like take control of her own life. But she is doing like absolutely incredibly now. She's amazing. She's one of my best friends. She is in my core group of survivors that I know that I can go to, and I'm not going to trigger her when I'm triggered. So she's awesome. And that's how I really found the survivor community. And then from there, last July, I created what I call the Survivor Awareness Ribbon. It is.
Oh, very cool.
Cool. I like it.
And like, if you can see, it's got like, it's made up of all these little individual dots.
Oh yeah.
Cause I'm totally extra like that. And I wanted it to be unique, not just like 3 colors thrown together. And that's what pulled me into the survivor community, because people started seeing that and being like, hey, wait a minute, we've got an icon now. We've got an image that we can use to kind of like bring us together. And then that's when I met David with Surviving Abuse Podcast. And as soon as he saw my graphics work, he hired me to do his promos for his podcast. And that's just kind of evolved into what it's become. I picked up, like actually really got involved in the activism stuff. I started a Discord server for survivors. We've now got over 150 kids in there. I say kids because most of them are younger than me, but 150 people in there with a few very, very closely vetted, very supportive allies, most of who have been in what I call TTI adjacent programs. So like juvenile psych wards, juvenile justice system, kind of like much more short-term kind of things, but that gave them a taste of what was going on. I've got that. I've made my website, www.thetroubledteenindustry.com, which I've been working on for quite a while. Through that was just going to be kind of like a fun thing that I just did for myself, because it started with me writing a bunch of pieces for my college classes that were about the TTI and stuff. I made a commitment to myself that each course that I took, I was going to try to connect one paper or one project to the TTI in some way. And after a couple semesters, I had a massive amount of writing about this stuff, all different types, like memoirs, journalistic or investigative journalism. There's one where I interviewed a bunch of survivors and talked about the similarities between their experiences and then the outcomes and the things that they have to live with now. I wrote a letter to parents. It's probably the most raw, open, honest piece that I've ever written in my life. And I really got into what it is like to live as a TTI survivor, the struggles that you go through and all of that. And actually from that, I've shared that with a number of parents who are looking into programs for their kids. And,
how do you get these parents that might be thinking about it? How do you get in touch with them before they pull the trigger on it?
Usually Reddit. Actually, there's a subreddit called Troubled Teens that has a bunch of survivors, former parents, former staff, all kinds of people. But that seems to be the place where a lot of people who are looking into these programs go and say, I'm thinking of sending my kid to it's either I'm thinking of sending my kid to a program because I've heard about them, or it is my kid is acting out so bad, I don't know what to do with them. What do I do? And so that's what I wrote this letter for, in response actually to a parent's post where she had talked about feeling like there was, like, she was being psychologically abused by her child, and like her house was a place of psychological warfare. And I've read some of those phrases that she used, and I was like, you think that your house feels like that, and you know how miserable you feel. Sending your kid to one of these places is going to put them through that 1,000-fold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she wrote me back a letter saying, you know, I've read through this. I had my husband read through this. You saved my kid from this life.
Hit the applause, Todd.
No.
Yeah, that's
Like,
awesome.
So now,
yeah, that's amazing.
in our Discord last year, we had a 20-year-old girl come in saying, my sister just got sent away this week. I know the truth about these places. My parents aren't believing me. What do I do? And this whole Discord server rallied around her. We basically, each one of us has our strengths when it comes to our knowledge base and our skills and things like that. So we would all, like, for about a month and a half, we all just constantly, every few days, would just send her everything that we could come across. And every week or two, she'd come in and say, she'd say, you know, I think this is working. I think my parents are seeing this for what it is a little bit more, but, you know, my sister's still there. And one day she comes to me and she's like, I don't know who to tell this to. I have to tell somebody. I have to get this out of my head. And you're the only person I feel like I can trust. I was like, what's up? Like, I just talked to my sister and she told me that she witnessed an incredibly violent restraint that gave her a panic attack. She's terrified. What do I do? How do I help her? And that's when it clicked, because this is my specialty. I told her, I said, I want you to talk to your sister. I want you to get her permission to, or I want you to ask her to tell your parents about this experience with the restraint.
About what?
About the restraint that she witnessed,
okay.
How it made her feel and all of that. And she comes back to me the next day. She's like, I talked to my sister. My sister told her parents. They're still kind of blowing it off. I was like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. My specialty is the deaths investigation, the fatalities and programs. Out of the 311 deaths that I have on my list, 97 of those were restraint deaths. I sent her that entire list.
That's a freaking body count that should be investigated by the FBI.
Yes. I sent her that entire list.
Even one, but 311? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I sent her that entire list, every name of every kid who had been killed in a restraint in a program, their ages, their programs, everything, the years. And my list only goes back to 1971. There are more past that, that are earlier. And so I sent her that
a lot
list.
On this podcast. We say this a lot on this podcast. It's like, okay, the official number is this, but I'm sure there's more.
Yep, exactly. Actually, in the last month, me and a couple of the other kids in my Discord, we've uncovered 6 more deaths that went unreported to licensing. They're on no lists. And so what I did with this girl is, once I knew her parents were aware of what her sister had witnessed, I sent her the names and all the information, plus all of the news links to all of the lawsuits that are involved, every piece of information that I had on every one of those 97 restraint deaths. She comes back in the server 2 days later, goes, guys, my sister just got home.
All right.
When she got there, when the girl came into the server, she said that her sister was looking at about 2 years in a program. We had her out in 2 months. And that's what the survivor community does. That is my focus in this. And that's why I try to bring people together, because we all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses, and we can enhance each other's weaknesses, fill in where we're needed with our own strengths. So everybody has a place in this. Everybody has a job. Everybody is important. And the more of us that we bring together, that's just proof right there. That was, we have 150 people in there, but that was only about maybe 20 to 30 of us who were working on that. We all did that. I couldn't have done it by myself.
I need to get involved with Discord and get into some of these groups.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to have you.
I mean, I'm not a TTI survivor, but I'm. No,
you're what I call TTI adjacent. You know enough about what it's like to live.
TTI is a cult. It really is.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I've been at. The last month or so has been incredible. I just got picked up by a nonprofit that caters to troubled teens. It runs kind of like a boys and girls club that also offers therapeutic services, but it's a facility where kids can go to, after school, or, if they're struggling at home, like they got in a fight with their family, they can go hang out there for a little while and decompress and talk to somebody. I just got picked up by the nonprofit. It's called the Teen Society. And she hired me to do our website at actual industry expectations, not the $100 and $200 that I've been charging people here and there, because I don't have any degree or paperwork or anything to back up my skill. She came across me actually because other people started sending my work to her. And then I've gotten like a number of survivors together. We actually have a local group from our Discord. We've got 3 survivors plus 2 allies who meet regularly. One of these kids, I think I mentioned him in the last one, he was in his programs from age 5 to 18, and he just got out in April. He moved here locally. He's at my house 2 or 3 days a week, all day long, hanging out with my family, because he has nobody else. His family's not local, and who really wants a family who really has had nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. So, and he just got his first job, and we're working on his GED. It's rather than focus on trying to take down the industry as a whole, my focus in this movement is supporting and empowering the survivors.
One person at a time.
Yeah. To the point where they've recognized their strength, they've recognized their purpose in this, and they're fully on board. They've really like come into their own once we've had conversations where I'm like, you'd be really good at this aspect. And that's kind of my role in making the change. I don't do the legislation. I don't really do like the public kind of speaking stuff. Most people don't even know who I am in this, unless they've had personal interaction with me.
Well, that's going to change soon.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted to kind of fly under the radar a little bit until I had built myself a reputation.
Once you launch that podcast of your own, where you're talking about it, they are going to seek you out and find you, because that's what happened to me. And in part 1, I may have said this on the previous episode, or I may have said, but I basically got on a soapbox at the end of part 1 of my story. And I basically said, it's just like for all of you pastors that were part of that back then, and all of the people that are doing it now, that are continuing this bullshit, this doctrine, just like, the podcasts are aware of you. They're coming for you. And it's going, and you're not going to be hidden much longer. Then I dropped my microphone.
He actually did.
It wasn't this microphone. It was a Shure SM58. Those things are indestructible. But the thing is it's just like, okay, when you hear that, you could be like, oh, he's just beating his chest. But you know what? It's happening. Because I got contacted a couple months ago by this girl. she's like 20 years old. Her mom was part of Faith Assembly, and and she had just like told her about it, like like, you know, like when she turned like 18 or 19, she told her about her experience in the cult, and that lit a fire under this girl's ass. And I don't think I talked about this on the episode. I think I told you about this like on the phone, but I'm just adding it to the episode now. But she just, you know, that lit a fire under her ass. She wants to know all about it and everything. And when she started looking into it, the first thing that she found when she started looking into it was about 3 weeks after we had released, our 2-part episode. And she, you know, so that was one of the first things that she heard. And there was a couple other there's not very many podcasts out there right now about that cult. There's like 4 or 5. Yeah. And I've been on 3 of them. but
brag much?
Always. But
well, you are a singer, so
anyway, it's be about dinner time here. I think the last thing I want to say is my next plan is next semester I am taking a psychology course for college. It's a special studies course. It's independent study kind of. You meet with your instructor once a week for like 40 minutes. And what you do is you put together a plan to do a research project and then put it into a paper that is formatted like a scientific study. And I'm going to do that I'm going to work on interviewing survivors and stuff and put together some kind of, you know, research document that expresses and shows the long-term psychological impacts that these programs have on kids.
Very cool.
That's the next direction I'm going.
Sweet.
And it'll be exciting to kind of see the outcome of that.
Yeah.
Well, I just got to say, you are one badass bitch.
Thank you.
Indeed. You're a superhero. You're my superhero. You're amazing.
Yeah, we've had, you know, it's just we've had a lot of guests recently, and like over the past, I don't know, about the past like 4 months or so, I think we've had 5 guests on the show, maybe more than that. And it's something we're going to keep doing. And it's kind of funny because if you listen to our early episodes, we're like, oh, we'll never have guests on this show. That didn't age well.
Yeah. We were those guys.
We also said we'll never do unsolved cases. That didn't age well either.
Yeah. Well, you know, you live and you learn.
And then just today, I got approached by somebody on Twitter wanting me to cover a couple of episodes or a couple unsolved cases. And I was like, I'll look into it. Yeah.
Well, and now you'll have an episode on Surviving Abuse podcast too. I can't wait to listen to that one.
On what?
Surviving Abuse podcast with David.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to you know, and when we put both of these episodes out, we're going to link your podcast. We're going to link everything and the notes and whatnot. You know, it's just, I mean,
expect a lot more friends is all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna find you. People are gonna be contacting you for interviews and stuff like that. People are gonna start reaching out to you. It's going to happen, and it's just. Yeah, and it's going to be surreal feeling because it was for me too. I mean, I didn't, when we started this podcast, I had no idea I was going to become a cult activist. Mm-hmm. But here I am.
There you are.
So Todd just like, you know, Todd's just sitting there, just like, he's just along for the ride.
Pretty much. I mean, I do my part, but yeah.
Oh yeah, you do. I wasn't ragging on you. I wasn't.
Oh, I know you weren't, brother. I know you weren't. But you know what I mean? It's just like when Bill asked me to do this, a little over a year ago now, I guess, right?
Closer to a year and a half.
Oh, just fuck yeah, it is now. God damn.
We're coming up on a year and a half now.
Jesus. Anyhow, when he asked me to do this, I'm like, yeah, that'll be fun, dude. We'll have a good time. And I was just like, you know what? I wasn't going in there expecting to be anything, you know. I was like, if a couple people listen to it, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And now Bill's like telling me like, what was the one that's over 900 now? And I'm like, 900? How the hell did that even happen?
It's over 1,000 now.
I mean, it's working. You know what I mean? So we're getting there, and
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
Even though hearing your stories the last time in part 1 there made my ghost want to leave my body. It was so bad.
But
I still
the thing
have
about
nothing
that
but respect for you.
Is if there weren't those of us survivors who went through all of that shit and overcame it, the kids coming out of these programs now would have no one.
Yes,
right, exactly. And it's the same thing with cults and everything, because they, it's just like, that the cult that I was in, it officially disbanded in the 80s when the leader, did the world a favor by dying. But it still continued on, and it's still ongoing, and you've got people being affected on it. I was on the Human Monsters podcast, and that was the first true crime podcast I'd ever been on. And
I forgot one thing.
What?
So the woman who hired me to do her website, she sends me a voice message yesterday, actually, saying, "Hey, the Teen Society got picked up and asked, we were asked to do a TED Talk. We want you to do it for us."
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
So
it's already happening. It's already happening.
Exactly.
You're already on the way.
Last month, it's been like a snowball effect. Like I'm just on this upward trajectory that is just endless at this point.
Keep it up. Keep doing it.
And but on the Human Monsters podcast, I mean, that was the first time I'd ever been on a true crime podcast, and I was a guest, and I brought 2 people with me who have been through it. Now, I'm pushing 50. I'll be 50 in a couple of weeks. One of the other guy that I brought on with me, he's a decade younger than me, and the girl that I brought on with me is a decade younger. So we're talking 3 generations here that were affected by this cult. 3 fucking generations.
I actually have an episode that I need to coordinate people, but I've got a girl who went to my wilderness program 10 years ago, and another one who just went a couple years ago. We're gonna all do an episode together.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because it's been around for so long and been allowed to continue, and that it's like, okay, I called TTI a cult earlier, and it is, but the difference between TTI and like religious cults are a lot of, unless a cult has like the tax exempt status as a church, then they're really not involved with the government in any way. But the government, in one way, shape, or form has their hands in the TTI,
right?
Allowing it to continue. So in a lot of ways, the TTI is actually worse than cults, because most of the people that are in cults are there voluntarily. If they're adults, if they're kids, they have no choice, they have no say in it. But the adults and everything, they're there by their own choice. Right. And now they can leave whenever they want. Yeah, it might be hard for them if the cult is like really crazy and all that stuff and everything. It might be hard for them to leave, but they can leave. But if you're under 18 and you're in one of these things, if you bolt out of there and escape, they're going to legally send you right back to it. Yep. If they catch you.
Yeah, they won't send you home. Your parents won't pull you out. They'll be convinced that you need more time.
Mm-hmm. So if anything, I didn't think there was anything worse than cults, but here it is.
There it is.
Do you have anything else, Nora?
I just want to encourage parents to give your kids an opportunity to talk. Ask them how they're doing. Give them the information that they need. If they're struggling, they deserve informed care just as much as anybody else. Keep them involved and try to do your best to adapt your parenting to your child's personality as it grows and changes too. Because a lot of parents don't do that. I think that's important.
Now, I did have a question that I wanted to ask. It's like, okay, TTI is bad, and yes, it is. But what if you have like a kid that legitimately is like spinning out of control? The parents can't come up with anything, and they are considering it, they find your and this is a tough question.
I think I know where you're going. I think I've got the answer.
Okay. What is their other option if they can't handle the situation? What is their other option as opposed to TTI?
There are programs out there that have green flags. Some of them are residential, some of them are not. But there are green flags to look for in residential care. At one point, I was going through and I was doing some research looking for studies that have been done on residential care for teenagers. The ones I came across in the U.S., I know are very skewed. I think there's only been 2, and their research practices are not exactly conducive to getting accurate information. But I did find some studies that were done that showed programs worked. And those were in places like Australia and the Netherlands and the UK and Germany, Switzerland, places like that. And then I went through and I looked at what their laws say about how these programs need to operate. And the countries that had the studies that said their programs were most successful, we have a channel in our Discord server where all it is suggestions for reform. It's a list of all those green flags. It's a list of all of those traits and practices and everything that we think would work. And the countries that had the most successful programs, according to those studies, ones that were the most successful had implemented the highest number of our suggestions into their programs. Okay. We have a reform plan. It's just a matter of getting people to listen to us, recognize that it needs reform, and recognize that we are the experts on this. We know what works and what doesn't. And, we need to get people to hear us, believe us, and support us in making that change, in reforming the industry, because residential care is always going to be a need for parents. I think it also needs to be, individualized. A lot more, there are a lot of kids that don't need to be in residential care at all. Look into in-state local day programs that provide therapeutic support while also providing education. Keep kids at home. That's a big one. But yeah, we have a plan for reform. We've got the evidence from other countries backing it up. It's just a matter of making that change, because the industry, we can't abolish it. We can't just shut it down and have it be gone.
All you can do is
residential care is a need. Yeah, residential care is a need. What we need to do is we need to put together a plan that ensures that residential programs are safe for kids. And our Discord channel, we already have a plan for how that's going to work.
Okay.
Outstanding.
And there's also this just popped into my head. There's also BetterHelp, and which is like online on the phone counseling and therapy and stuff like that. And this is a free plug for them. Feel free to sponsor us, BetterHelp.
Yes.
But anyway, do you have any more? Because I don't want to cut you off. I know Todd's dinner's getting cold and everything, but
no. But she said dinner time, not me.
Yep. I said dinner time.
Oh, you said dinner time. Yeah, she said dinner time like 20 minutes ago.
I didn't hear that. I thought you said that it was dinner time, Todd.
No, not me.
I don't really have anything else other than kids' voices matter a lot more than people give them credit for. They've got a lot of really good things to say, and they're the ones who are going to be running our world when we're old. So,
you better treat them good, because otherwise they're going to leave you in a nursing home to rot.
We need to teach them we need to teach them and encourage and nurture their voices and the strength their voices have. What kids have to say needs to be heard a lot more than it is.
Indeed.
Right. So and wrapping it up, so you can. I'm sorry, I didn't care about Todd's dinner, but I do care about yours.
You see how it is? You see how it is.
But wrapping it up, I mean, it's been an awesome two episodes and everything, and I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point. And yeah, I'm game for, I'm going to be on David's podcast at some point, and I'd be okay with coming on yours if you find a need for me.
That's my podcast is going to be a little bit different. I'm still going to do the interviews and stuff, but I also want to intersperse it with educational episodes to talk about some of the practices and the way these places operate and the red flags and the green flags. I also want to do some episodes that are like memorial episodes where we talk about some of these fatality cases, maybe interview the families and I don't want it to just be TTI survivors. We need ally voices. We need parent voices. We need staff voices. We need the people who don't live with the stigma of having been a troubled kid, because a lot of people hear troubled kid and they think, troubled kid, you didn't get fixed by the program. Adult. You're a troubled adult. And you guys have the credibility that backs us up and gives our stories credibility.
Right.
Anyway, thanks a hell of a lot for listening. We really appreciate the hell out of it. Follow us on our social media on X, on Facebook, our Patreon. We have a Patreon page. We don't have any subscribers yet. Why don't you change that?
Suck.
If you're our first Patreon subscriber, will get a CKCB t-shirt.
Yes, we will.
Free. Yeah,
I like that idea. That's good.
Yeah,
I'm going to subscribe right now.
You still got to buy yours, asshole. But
no, I don't. I'll be the first subscriber. You're going to buy it for me.
I've got my podcast shirt on.
Oh, hell yeah. That's awesome. But we appreciate y'all listening and everything. And, thanks again, Nora, for being on. I'm not going to keep you from your dinner, your lukewarm dinner any longer.
Thank you for having me.
and if you like us, tell a friend. If you hate us, tell an enemy. 5-star review, all that stuff. And until next week, later.
Cheers, everybody.
See you, fuckers.
Go. What is it?